Welcome to the last part of the last chunk of our last unit in Intro to Philosophy. And this unit is on existentialism, which is a 20th century sort of largely movement with still some hangovers today. Now, I'm guessing that a number of you probably have run across the term existentialism perhaps back when you were in high school. When I was in high school, we studied it in my honors English class. This was based for AP. But you know, when I took it in high school, we didn't really do a very clear job of trying to get a handle on it. So, you know what? We're going to do that now. Okay? Let's go ahead and begin to talk about its methodology. This is some background things here. Back in the late 19th century, there emerged a different style of doing philosophy, a different method called phenomenology. And phenomenology is, one way to describe it is the attempt to take the phenomenon of experience seriously. And one way to get at it is to picture the difference in perspective, okay? And the way I like to do that is like this. In your mind's eye, get a clear picture of yourself swimming in a pool. Okay, you have that? Now, what I would do now if we were here together is I would ask you, how did you picture yourself? Were you above yourself, looking down at yourself in the pool so that you could see yourself swimming down there in the pool? Right? Or were you in the pool swimming like this? Okay? Usually, most of us do the former is what my experience is on this. But here's the difference. Okay. That first perspective, that is more like the way Descartes would see things. So look at yourself down your pool. You're a spectator viewing a world of objects. I am a self-encapsulated ego, right? That looks out at the world, and so that, I'm not actively involved in it so much. The second one, where you're in the pool, that's phenomenology. Okay? Phenomenologists want to get us back in the pool. They want to take our experience seriously. Okay? Now, existentialism, then, is a phenomenological enterprise, as we will see, especially as we get on into Sartre. But, we really can't define it with a quick and easy definition, because different people who have been called existentialists, and sometimes all the way back to Socrates, but, this is a very dubious kind of thing. This is read back into him. But here's the difficulty in defining existentialism. One can compare two writers who are both called existentialists and find no agreement on any one cardinal point. So we have to be wary of any attempt to define it with any set formulas. How then do we get at it? Well, while we can't find any pat formulas, there are recurrent themes that tend to crop up in existentialism. So perhaps the best way to conceive of it is as an historical movement in which connections of dependence and influence can be traced from one writer to another, so that many diverse writers can be said to belong to the same family tree. The way we find the members of our existentialist tree is to look for the recurrent general themes that are related, yet they have been dealt with in very diverse fashions, as we will see. Okay? And we're going to approach this by identifying 7 different themes that existentialists tend to deal with. And some of these are going to be stark. Okay? This first theme, then, is one of our stark ones. God is dead. Now, okay, be careful here. Existentialists, they didn't all mean that there is no God. In fact, the first existentialist that we're actually going to study in depth was a deeply religious Christian existentialist. So the interpretations of this phrase, God is dead, varies greatly. Okay? Jean-Paul Sartre decided from a young age that simply there was no God. So he was an atheist from the get-go, from a very young age. Okay? Søren Kierkegaard, who's going to be the deeply religious existentialist we're going to be talking about, he thought that the church, Christendom, had effectively killed God by making Christianity so routinized. Everything was so easy. Everything was put into a formula. So there was no serious encounter with the Christ moment. They made the experience so routinized that anyone could be a Christian. It was all very easy, just a matter of going through the motions and all that. So, so that was his idea. And then there is Nietzsche, who actually was among the first, perhaps maybe the first, I don't know, to utter the phrase God is dead or make it a significant part of his writing. And in fact, I'm going to share with you this little brief section from the Gay Science called The Madman, where this is announced. Have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, I seek God, I seek God. As many of those who do not believe in God were standing around just then, he provoked much laughter. Has he got lost, said one. Has he lost his way like a child, asked another. Or is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage? Immigrated? Thus they yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and he pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God? He cried. I will tell you, we have killed him. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What will we be doing when we unchain this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually backward, sideward, forward, in all directions? Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as though through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is not night continually closing in on us? Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God? Do we smell nothing as of yet the divine decomposition? Gods too decompose. God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. How shall we comfort ourselves, the murderer of all murderers, who is the holiest and mightiest of all that the world has yet not owned, has bled to death under our knives? Who will wipe this blood off us? What water is there for us to clean ourselves? What festivals of atonement, what sacred games shall we have to invent? Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we not ourselves become gods simply to appear worthy of it? There has never been a greater deed, and whoever is born after us, for the sake of this deed, he will belong to a higher history than all history hitherto. Here, the madman fell silent, and looked again at his listeners, and they too were silent, and stared at him in astonishment. At last, he threw his lantern on the ground, and it broke into pieces and went out. I have come too early, he said to them. My time is not yet. This tremendous event is still on its way, wandering, and it has not yet reached the ears of men. Lightning and thunder require time. The light of the stars requires time. Deeds, though done, still require time to be seen and heard. The deed is still more distant from them than the most distant stars, and yet they have done it themselves. It has been related further on the same day the madman forced his way into several churches, and there stuck up his Requiem Aeternam Deo, the Mass for God, the death Mass for God. Let out to be called to account, he is always said to have replied nothing but, what are all these churches after all, if not the tombs and sepulchres of God? Okay, this curious piece is very interesting. And, one way of reading this is that this is sort of a lament, perhaps, maybe a celebration of the death of God from the medieval worldview. Okay, we talked about this before, back when we were doing Descartes, or before, as we're leading up to Descartes, right? That the medieval worldview saw the world as teleological, everything aimed at God. The world was drunk with God, as it were. With the scientific worldview, where now not everything points to God, except now science is taking the center of our lives. We no longer need God in that way. Okay, so that's what he's saying here. Okay, what will we do when unchain this earth from its sun? Where is it moving now? Whether are we moving? Right, that reference to Copernicus, perhaps even, right? And the relativity that's in there. So the stability of that medieval worldview of the God-centered universe that we had, we can never recover that again. God is dead. First theme. The second theme, let's call this one the individual and systems. There are two claims here. First of all, the individual cannot be understood within a rational system. Okay? Existentialists have been called disappointed rationalists. They have a distrust of any attempt to understand experience by constructing a set of all-embracing necessary truths derived by deduction from some axiomatic starting point. Remember Descartes, right? Get down to break everything down to your axioms right there. Then you got those 4 axioms, and you build up from there. No, guess what? It doesn't work that way. Instead, they want to explicate the human starting point. Okay? Rationalists like to talk about essences. But for us, existence precedes essence. The second claim, the universe that the individual confronts is absurd. Okay, another problem with rationalism is that it makes the universe into an ordered, predictable whole. But no. In the human drama, individuals face pure contingency. Note, for example, the randomness of natural evil. Do you know when you will die? Especially during this unpredictable times right now, right? I mean, we should think we should be able to control that, but no, we can't. There's pure contingency. Who gets it, who doesn't? Okay? This is just really a telling time to be talking about this. It may be even a little difficult for us, right? But notice this, though. The point of this is all this. Our reason can and does fail us in our understandings of the universe. Look at our attempt to control the universe and watch the universe just shrug and shake us off. Right? Just look at the history of scientific revolutions. I mean, at the time of Newton, they were convinced that they were that close to figuring out the very nature of things. But now we know they weren't. Guess what? Neither are we. The third theme, intentionality. If you ask a phenomenologist or an existentialist, what is belief? Or what is an emotion? They wouldn't answer in naturalistic terms. They wouldn't talk about, the feeling emerges up in us and that shows us as emotion like that. No, they wouldn't tell that story. Instead, they would emphasize that belief is always belief that. And that anger is always anger about. So that the object of belief or emotion is not an object or state of affairs in the external world. I believe this is not about that out there. Okay? Look, after all, I may be falsely angry. I may believe falsely. I've had false beliefs before. We all have, right? Or I may be angry about something that didn't, in fact, happen. Okay? So, that the object of belief or emotion is internal to the belief or the emotion. It is, in phenomenological terms, an intentional object. Okay, theme number 4. Let's call this one Being, Absurdity, and the Other. These are 3 examples of typically existentialist these are technical categories. That is, these are those things that they define in a particular kind of way to do the work within philosophy. So that, for example, being is sometimes it's a way of talking about reality or maybe nature. It's a bit vague, but we'll talk about at least one example of this as we go along. For example, Jean-Paul Sartre divides the universe up into the pour soi, the for itself, and the en soi, the in itself. But that's coming up fairly soon. Okay? The second term, the absurdity. This ultimately is a denial of the principle of sufficient reason. For existentialists, There is no ultimate explanation as to why things are they are and not otherwise. Okay? Shit happens. This guarantees human freedom. Okay? If there's no ultimate explanation, then human choice has significance and it has meaning. We'll talk about that in a few more minutes, a little bit more. The third term, the other. The other is any object that serves as a defining agent. You know yourself through the other. Okay, look. The social comes before the individual. When a child, according to psychologists, when a child comes, when they emerge into self-consciousness, that's before that, they haven't separated themselves from their mother. Or sometimes twins don't separate themselves from each other until a later point in time even. But, the only way I realize I'm me is when I realize that I'm not you. So that the so-called wolf child, the child raised in the wild, like the Jungle Book and all that kid wouldn't have any language. They wouldn't have any sense of self. So in order to become me, I have to have you. You know yourself through the other. The fifth theme. This is a big one. Okay? Freedom and choice. Existence precedes essence. In this one, the notion of choice is fundamental. And under this we have three claims. The first one, choice is ubiquitous. That means that it's everywhere. It's all pervasive through experiences. Experience is saturated with choice. Okay? All my actions imply choices. Even when I don't choose explicitly, my action bears witness to an implied choice. So, suppose right now that you're actually sitting and enduring this brief lecture. That's a choice. It's a choice that you're still here watching it, that you haven't cut it off and went and done something else that will be much more fun, or maybe much more fulfilling, perhaps, I don't know, or maybe less so. But still, everything you do at least implies a choice. The fact that I'm sitting here right now, babbling on at this box in front of me, that's a choice too. Okay? Choice is ubiquitous, all of life. Even if we don't explicitly choose, there's still a choice to still be doing this right here and now. An implied choice. Okay? 2. My choices are often governed by certain criteria. Nevertheless, the criteria which I employ themselves are chosen, and there are no rational grounds for such choices. Now, we often do things that we say we do them for certain reasons. For example, I'm a Christian. I voted this way because I'm a Democrat or Republican or whatever. Well, guess what? You chose that too. Okay? Ultimately, the choice comes down to your choice, and you can't blame it, not legitimately, you blame it on anything else but your choice. Okay? The criteria you choose, that you employ to make your choices, you chose them too. You say, I did that because I'm a Christian. Well, guess what? You chose that too. Okay? Whatever the case may be. Third, no causal explanations for my actions can be given. Pardon the clunky passive voice there, but I really can't think of any other way to put this quite the way I want to. Notice this. Freedom is fundamental. Okay? Jean-Paul Sartre likes to talk about radical freedom. And radical freedom, we are condemned to be free. By the way, with radical freedom comes radical responsibility. Okay? Let's say all this is over. You're downtown walking through 5 Points. You're walking on the sidewalk, and a bus hops on the sidewalk and plows into you. Ouch, you're wounded, or whatever. Okay? Well, you know what? You have responsibility for that. You chose to be downtown, and you know that downtown are buses, and sometimes buses go out of control and run over people. You were in that lucky position. But the driver's also responsible, because the driver chose to be a bus driver. Sometimes buses get out of control and run over people, and that they chose to do that nonetheless. Everything, every choice implies responsibility. Okay? Radical freedom, radical responsibility. Some of this makes uncomfortable. 6th theme. The importance of extreme experiences. They like to talk about things like anxiety, dread, death, suicide. Existentialists use extreme experiences to characterize our nature because routine experiences are very conventionalized. One of my favorite philosophers, who's not an existentialist, Alfred North Whitehead, one time quipped that it takes an unusual mind to undertake an analysis of the obvious. It does, yeah. But if you want to, those things are very, very conventionalized. They're just routine. Okay? If you want to know what someone's made of, look at how that person responds to death, to suicide, or to dread. Dread is fear of an unmade future, right? Do you know where we're going to be in 10 years? Would be good. You hope so. Okay. Sartre wrote this wonderful short story called "The Wall," which this man is. This was during the little Civil War. This man was caught as rebellion. He was sentenced to death by firing squad, and the play is the night before he is to be shot. There's a room. There's a cell full of these people, right? And one of them is taken out and shot, and the main character still. I mean, this is grueling. It's an amazing story. I recommend. It's called "The Wall" by Jean-Paul Sartre. So these extreme experiences, they reveal our nature. They reveal who we are, what we're made of. Okay? So the role of extreme experiences. Our final theme. Forms of communication. Their forms of communication are often hypothetical, right? If you believe this, then this follows. Also, they use many means to communicate their ideas. For example, Søren Kierkegaard, we're going to read a work by him next time, and in that work he refers to himself as Johannes Climacus. That's not his name, no. He wrote under pseudonyms to give the appearance of a continuing debate, because he would write under this synonym, then respond to it under that synonym, disagreeing, or he would respond to it as Kierkegaard. So I mean, he wrote under these pseudonyms. Okay, but they do these kind of odd things like this. Plus, they also use novels, plays, stories, dramatic dialogue, as well as systematic philosophical treatises. Sartre's first novel is called Nausea. I recommend it too. But that's more extreme experiences there, I suppose. Their use in literature of literary device and plays, Sartre wrote plays, we're going to go into those a little bit later on, these have all been very effective. Okay? Now, that's our introduction. And because you had no reading to go with this particular class period, I'm not going to ask you a writing assignment for this one. Okay? There will be one next time. So I will see you. We'll discuss this very soon. See you soon. Stay safe.